Greetings, salutations. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Porman. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We've turned off chat on Trailhead Live, and we've turned on comments on the YouTube stream. So if you are wanting to see and talk to us, and I hope you will, you're going to need to use the YouTube URL. So let me paste that URL here so you can all see it. And let me make that a little bit bigger. So we'll make this 2 steps bigger. And I think we should be good to go here.
Greetings,
salutations. Hey. I was monitoring myself and then it popped up and started streaming. So I apologize for that little bit of feedback there. So we are going and we're going to be working on the factory pattern today. Now the factory pattern is one of those things that the name gets a little abused, right? When I first learned about the factory pattern, it was completely different than the way I find it used today most often. So we're going to talk about both today. And again, if you want to interact with us, here is the URL on YouTube. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the factory pattern in 2 different ways. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a factory that we already have in place in Apex Recipes. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into shared code. And I'm going to pick up, I'm going to look in tests. I'm going to look in test shared code, and I'm going to pick up our test factory. And as the name implies, this is a factory class. Now, the most basic thing that a factory class can do is give you back an object of a particular type. Right? And the key here is that you're going to be creating an instance, you're going to be requesting a class from a completely unrelated class in this case. So we're going to say, hey, test factory, give us an account. We're not instantiating test factory, we're calling a static method. When we call that method though, we're going to get back an account. And the way this works is the methods here are all public, or not that are not all, but a lot of them are public static. And so you can see here that we're going to have a public static sObject creating method called create sObject. We're very creative with the names. And it's going to have an sObject type coming in. Now, the way that functionally works, if you've seen me write tests before, is if I open up a particular test, let's go into invocable methods. Do I have one in here? Yeah, here, nope. Here we go. If we look at this code, I'm going to say, hey, account, give me an account. I'm going to cast it to an account. You might have to do that often with a factory method. And then I'm going to call my test factory.create sObject. And I'm passing in the kind of object I want. And I'm going to say, hey, true. Now, you may be going, why don't you just create a new account and give it a name? Because you have to do that anyway. Well, that's true, but part of what our factory does, and this is the joy and the real magic of factories, is they're going to do all the complicated work of figuring out everything else other than that required field name. So in our case, our test factory goes in and says, okay, here's the name. What else do I need on the account object? I'm going to infer and populate data. So it's going to create fake data for the address, it's going to create a fake phone number, etc. by looking at the type, inspecting the object through a schema describe, etc. Now, that's the sort of like sweet spot for factory use. When you want to be able to create an object from your data, or from a minimal amount of data, and you don't want to care about or go into the details of how that object is created. That's when you pull up the factory pattern. Now, this is the way we do the factory pattern for test data, but it's not necessarily a great example of what the factory pattern is overall. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some examples and go into our test data and figure out, not our test data, go into great detail on our factory method or factory class to demonstrate why you might want to use a factory rather than just creating a new instance of a class. And to do that, we have to be a little bit more prescriptive and detail oriented than we normally are in Apex Recipes. Because the sweet spot, the joy of the best part of using a factory comes in when you need to get an object back, but you don't necessarily know what kind of object you need back. And so we're going to demonstrate that with cars. And we're going to sort of demonstrate that a little bit here. Let's go into our code base, and I've created a patterns recipes folder. And so I'm going to create a new Apex class. I'm going to call this one the factory recipes. Do I want to call it factories recipes? Yeah, I think I do. Factory recipes. We'll do create Apex class. We'll do factory pattern recipes. And we're going to put that in a custom directory. I'm going to put it into my pattern recipes folder. And this is going to demonstrate how we use or how we create a factory. So this is going to demonstrate how to create a factory that will return an object to us from a method, having figured out what kind of object we need. All right, now this sounds a little complicated. It is one of the more advanced things that we do. The factory pattern is not necessarily the first one you turn to when you're doing software development. It can be if you become very familiar with it, but oftentimes you're like, well, I'm going to have to worry about typecasting and that sort of stuff. And so some people, they're like, I'm going to hold off on it. But what we're going to do, and I'm going to create a big old comment here to explain it, is we're going to create an interface. And we're going to call this one factory. We're going to call this vehicle interface. Okay. And we're going to leave the name interface in there because we want to be like over the top clear as to what these things are. Then we're going to have a class called car that inherits from then implements vehicle interface. Vehicle interface. And we're going to have a class bike that implements vehicle interface. And we're going to be able to set up our factory method to return to us whichever kind of vehicle makes the most sense. Okay? So we're going to say, hey, give me a vehicle. It's going to return to us an object of either car or bike, depending on the requirements we pass in. Now, this is an extremely simplified use case, but it'll give you an idea of how that factory method is supposed to work and how to work with these other classes. Now, the first thing we've done here is create this big old comment explaining what we're going to do. Now we got to go in here and do the rest of the normal stuff. So I'm going to get rid of with and turn it to inherited sharing, and I'm going to get rid of the constructor here. And I'm going to save this so I can reference it, but I'm going to open up, I'm going to create a new Apex class. I'm going to call this one, well, there we go, vehicle interface. Okay. And I'm going to choose a directory. I'm going to put this in my pattern recipes class. And this defaults to a class, but it's not really one. So I'm going to just change this to be public interface, vehicle interface, and I'll save that there. And then I'm going to implement a couple of other classes. So create Apex class, row, internal error. What? Failed to run. Error authenticating with the refresh token due to expired. Awesome. My scratch word expired. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to go into the terminal. Remember, if you're using Apex recipes and you're like, there's a lot of steps here, I've created this org-init script to make things easier. I'll pull this up so that you can all see what it's doing. It's just going to run these commands for us. I'm going to fire this up. I'm going to say bin/org-init. We'll go ahead and let it kick over and do its thing. Hopefully. Maybe. There we go. Uh-oh, that looks like an error. And oh, yeah. So I'm running on a GS0 org, which means that I have to go into my configuration and turn off, come on, and turn off transaction finalizers, because those are now in beta and you don't have to do anything to turn them on. Okay. All right, so we'll save that. Now we'll go down here and do this again. Running. Okay. And I'm going to close this window so as to make everything run a little bit smoother. And maybe. So again, if you want to leave comments, questions, snide remarks, go to YouTube and hit me up with a you know, whatever questions you've got. Oh no, we got another. Okay, here, let's stop that. Let's see what the issue is. Make this bigger. Failed to deploy settings to Scratch org. Org create command. All right, let's just do this the hard way. Scratch org. Create a default Scratch org. Yep. Apex recipes. Make this one 30 days. Come on, create. So once we have our interface created, we're going to create some properties, some details, and then those will be implemented in our implementing classes. So we'll have failed to run. Awesome. So that's a fun little what's going on here. Let's do author. Let's do it this way. sfdx force org list. $11.17. That ain't today. Let's try that again. We've got a come on. Test, and that's good. That's Apex recipes. And so Apex recipes, let's do open default org. See if that works. Hey, it pulled it up. Okay, so it hasn't expired. All right, come on. There we go. I want this up here. I want to make this full screen. Okay, my computer is struggling this afternoon. I don't know what's going on. Interesting. Okay. So we've got our Scratch org open. So this means we should be able to create this class. Why are we not able to? Let's see if it lets us save. Try that again. I feel like this week I've had some tooling difficulties, and I don't know if that's just because I don't immediately create a new Scratch org for each of these episodes, or this is saying, dependencies resources. I've had this issue before. So we're going to go into the dependencies resources and get rid of it. Somebody's asking me, what is that ZSH for auto suggest commands? I do have a ZSH. I do use ZSH. So if you're not familiar, Z shell or ZSH is an alternative to bash. And when I use that, you'll see that it sort of ghost populates things for me. And that's actually a ZSH plugin. It just remembers commands I've typed before and then lets me use them. That's ZSH-autocomplete. But let's see. Here's my static resources, dependencies. Okay, does this, let's go in here, static resources. And so somebody else is asking, what is an interface? An interface is a contract. So if you have if you define an interface, what you're defining is a set of features and methods and properties that the implementing classes must have. They can have other things, but they must have those particular things. So for instance, when we get the tooling bit here working, I'm going to save this, and we're going to add some properties and methods to vehicle interface that make sense. So let's go with, let's figure out why static resources dependency resource exists and is correct. So here's static resources. I don't have a dependency .resource. And let's do this. Let's do force push. Let's do push source and override conflicts. Let's try that. And okay, so an interface, while we're doing that, let's just put in here. So a vehicle interface might have a method that says a property for, we'll say static integer, and we'll give this a number of passengers. I don't need static there. Okay, so from here on out, anything that implements the vehicle interface must have a property called number of passengers, and it must be an integer, because after all, we don't want like 4.5 passengers. That'd be a little awkward. All right. We still don't have a dependencies resources. Okay, so let me just touch that file. So we'll do cd force app main. I don't want default. I want default, and this is going to be static resources, and we'll touch dependencies resource. We'll see if this allows us to save. If that doesn't, we'll have to push it. Does it not want the semicolon there? Okay. So it might also have a method called past safety inspection or last safety inspection. So we'll do date last safety inspection, and we'll say that the last safety inspection is a method, and we'll leave it at that. And it does not like that one either. Missing, no, I don't want that. We'll leave that as date there. So it still wanted to find the metadata. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to create one called dependencies. And I'm going to choose a file. And I'm just going to choose a random file from my downloads called, let's go with download. Okay, we'll save that. Great. So now if I pull, it should download that file for us. Doug says we can all input those. No worries, that's true. I'm glad my frustrations and failures are helpful. Okay, so it pulled that down. Now we should be able to save. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the documentation for interface. Salesforce Apex interface. because I want to make sure that I've got the syntax right, because interfaces have a little bit of a different syntax. Because what you're defining is not the logic of a method, but you're defining the actual contract, what that method has to return, what properties it takes, etc. So you can see here that we've got a double discount in the way that we specified that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this date last safety inspection. We're going to make this a method. Okay, and we got the last passenger, and we can have that be a method as well. So we'll create those, save that. What did it fail to run for? Expect saving. Failed to run again. Dependencies. Let's do pull and overwrite conflicts. There we go. Okay. So in this case, we're going to have two properties here. That'll be enough to explain what's going on. It says no source found. So why are we still having issues with the file not being found? We've got the resource. Okay, that's great. And it does not have a and put the semicolons back there. Still not letting me save this because of the resource thing. Let's do this. Let's delete it. And then we'll pull. Deleted. Okay. Yeah, see, it's still failing with the expected metadata, but we will pull for an override conflicts, which should delete it here. Maybe. Static resources are kind of the bane of my existence right now. Yeah, see, it left the file there, but I'm going to delete it. Look around it. A little Yoda here. Now we will push. Maybe. We're unable to complete this action due to a missing source file. I'm gonna go cry in a corner. Dependencies, choose file. I'm gonna give it a zip file this time. Let's go with this file. We'll save this. So all of this, for those of you who are wondering why I'm having so much difficulty with this, is because I once created a zip file that had I created a file that I uploaded as a static resource that was not a directory, and that was my downfall. Let's see if I can't find a zip file here. I'll just have to make one. Zip. I don't know if it was an encoding file or what, but I've discovered that I just have never gotten it to work without it being in a folder unto its own. And so what happens is if I pull, now instead of creating a resource file here, it'll create the folder, and that will work just fine. And I don't know why, but I've never really dove into it to try and figure out what all was going on. We'll see when this finishes, we'll get our dependencies back, and it'll be a folder. And now that we've got a dependencies JSON here, this is our XML file. And so now we can push symlinks in an old version of the CLI. That could be it. Yeah, it could be an old version of the CLI that was causing it with symlinks. Uh-oh, failed to run. Let's see why. Okay, so it's creating the static resource files. Yes, what's going on? Push metadata. And what I think is causing it is because I've got the folder now, and I've got this dependencies JSON file, which is the metadata.xml, right? So it's choosing it as this .json, and I think what I need to do is rename it. So we're gonna on the fly try and figure this out. I'm gonna call it dependencies dot what is it dash meta. Well, how come we don't have another one of those? We have the resource and that there. Where's the rest of my? Because this is my resource type. This is my XML. When we look at other XML files, so if we look at a class, and oh, you know what? So one of the things that I've always ignored is somebody asked me on codeLive what ignore files, and you'll see that I've added this pattern here which hides all of the metadata files. And why did I do that? Because I'm too clever by half. That's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to exclude that, save it there. Now you can see that I've got resource.meta.xml, my dependencies.json. For whatever reason, it pulls it down as a JSON file, not resource.meta-xml. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try this resource.meta.xml. Yeah? Let's try that. Now I'm going to push. I feel like we've been pulled into a side quest here. I apologize for that. We will get to the factory pattern here as soon as I can actually push code. I'm going to go sit in a corner and cry here. Expected file path, shared code feature.cls. That's from a branch we... Classes. Shared code. I don't have a feature class. Let's try it this way. Pull source and override conflicts. So if there is one in the org, we should see it. Here's our org. Let's look in the org to see if that's there. I'm just going to create a new scratch org for the next one. Open. We'll put in feature. Yeah, nothing's showing up. I don't know why it's not. No results found. So push and overwrite conflicts. Try that. Yeah, sometimes I forget, like, why is my metadata.xml files not showing up? And it's because I hid them, which is why I'm too clever by half. Here, there's got to be a way to reset that or refresh that. Let's do refresh subject, sfdx, create apex, pull source. Nope, we tried that. Cancel active command. True, creating, launching. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go into sfdx. I'm gonna go into orgs. And I've got to figure out which one of these orgs is the one I'm logged into. So right down here is I've got my little Apex, my little org connector icon. And is it source tracking reset? Let's try that. Source tracking. Source track. Okay, it's not in the CLI. It's not in the UI there. SFDX source. Is it force source track? Let's just try source tracking. Source. Convert, delete, open, push, retrieve status. Let's see if there's another one there. User, Visual Force, project upgrade. package. No. Let's go with org. That's the metadata retrieve. Let's see. Somebody's saying they had to use something like this for the other day, and I'm not seeing it. It's not to say it's not there. Let's ye old Google it. SFDX force source tracking reset. Source tracking. Change tracking. Force source tracking reset, not resetting. This is what looks like interesting. Somebody's asking a question, is there a way to pull all the metadata locally in a VS Code, like a backup of the entire org? That is what happens when you pull. It pulls all the source tracked metadata. So this looks like a command I should be able to run. Let's try it. Maybe it's like a unlisted command. So we'll back this over here. And looks like it's doing something. If this is all it was, I'm going to be like, oh, okay. I don't need to do SFTX twice. Thank you. Here we go. Reset my tracking org. Yes. Okay. Now let's see if we can push. Push. Okay. Yep. The other thing you can do, Doug, is okay. Expected path code feature.cls. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna create, not scratch org, create class feature custom directory shared code. Now you save. I can has save. Pretty please. I'm glad this is helpful. Thank you for letting me know that it's helpful. Hopefully this will push here. My daughter has chimed in the past that the reason I can't get things to work is because I'm not using the right colors. So maybe that's what's going on. Okay. Namespace standard prompts is having an issue. Okay. I've got metadata issues, and this is probably has to do with the way I'm going to get rid of the prompts folder because I don't need that for this branch. Let's try that again. So the interface is going to give you what a comedy of errors today. So it's going to give you these properties, and then your implementing classes have to have those properties or methods as well. Okay, so the force main default prompts. I don't have any prompts. I got rid of that folder. I'm not trying to edit the contents of an in-app guidance. Let's do pull and override. Okay. Okay. Now, no results are found. I'm going to reset my chart source tracking again. Let's see if this... Yes. Okay. Pull and override conflicts. This is my moment of zen. It worked! Oh wait, I was trying to push. Push source to the default scratch org. I am a leaf on the wind. I am a leaf in the wind. I am a leaf in the wind. I am not a leaf in the wind. I am apparently a leaf in the wind who just, you know, got washed. Okay. I don't want to do the in-app guidance. I want to turn off. Well, wait. I just refreshed this. Did that give me more prompts again? Refresh that. Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to demonstrate how this works, and you're just going to have to roll with the punches a little bit, and we're going to have to go on faith that I am not pulling the wool over your eyes here. So I'm going to create an Apex class. I'm going to call this one car, and I'm going to choose a custom directory. I'm going to put that back in my patterns recipes. I'm going to change this to inherited sharing, and I'm going to get rid of the car here. Now the crucial part about using an interface is I'm going to make my classes implement that interface. That's the big deal. So I'm going to say implements. I'm going to do vehicle interface. Okay. Now you can implement multiple things, but this is the one we want. Now the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to try and save this. Now I know we're having issues saving, but one of the things that should also come back and tell you is that car doesn't currently implement the following things. In fact, here it is. Car must implement the following method: integer vehicle interface number of passengers, and car must implement the method date vehicle last inspection. Okay, so in order for this interface to be functional, for this class to be compile even, we have to create public, and we don't want to make it static, we'll do public date, and we're going to put in here, we're going to do our, what did we call that method? We're going to call this last safety inspection. Last safety inspection. We don't take any parameters, and we're going to say return date.today dot minus, or we're going to do add days, and we'll do -30. Okay. Now, why would you want to do that? I mean, that's hard coding it in there. That's probably not a great thing to do. Somebody's chimed in. We can probably save just that particular class. Let's try that. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to move Yoda so that I can see around him, and scroll down, and I'm not going to diff against the org. I guess I have to do it from the command line. So we'll do sfdx force source push dash p, and we'll do it's going to be force app main default classes share pattern recipes. Now, if you're not familiar with working on the command line, you notice I used a backslash there. That says yes, there's a space there, and I really mean for there to be a space there. And then I'm going to do the vehicle interface dot class. Let's try that. How do we like them apples? No. Unexpected argument. Oh, that's right, because push, we want to do a deploy. And then we'll do the one file. Deploy! I feel like when you have deploy, you should be able to put an exclamation after it just for fun, grins and giggles. And it does not like that either. Oh, okay, we're gonna move on and we get to pretend. Okay, I'm also going to create my other method in here, which is public integer get, or number, what did I call it? Number of passengers. Okay, number of passengers, and I'm going to say that this is return. We're going to make cars hold 5 people. Okay. Now we've got a method. We've got a class here called car, and that will implement. You notice that our little squiggly line under car disappeared, and we've still got this one over here. It doesn't know about this type, but that's because we're having issues saving to the org right now. But what's happening is it now knows that we have those 2 methods. All right. Now we're also going to create the bike class. So what I'll do is I'll create a new class called bike. put it in my custom directory, my pattern recipes, and we'll make this inherited. Okay, and we're going to make it implement vehicle interface. Imp. Nope, that's right. Implements. That's why I didn't like that. Implements. There we go. Now, instead of having, we could have that constructor in there, but for grins and giggles, we're just going to do the public integer number of passengers, and we're going to return 2. Seems reasonable for a bike. And we'll do public date last inspection date, and we'll say return. I'll even spell return correctly, maybe. Return date dot today dot add days -15. Okay, so 15 days ago. So we've got these 2 classes, bike and car. And now the thing about a factory pattern is that when we have a factory, we're going to create this, and this we're going to go back to our factory pattern recipes class, and we're going to have a public static method, public static. And what we're going to do is, instead of returning a concrete class, car or bike, we're going to return that interface. And what this allows us to do is we can return either car or bike because they both implement that vehicle interface. So public static vehicle interface, we'll call this one get instance. And we're going to pass in an integer, and it'll be number of passengers, like that. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to really simply, just over the top simply, make a decision on whether or not we need a car or a bike. So we're going to say if we'll say if number of passengers is greater than 2, because we said 2, it was the max for bike, then we're going to return new car, and else we'll return new bike. That. Now, what this allows you to do is you've got some piece of information, how many passengers you need to move from A to B, right? Now you can say, go get me a vehicle that'll do it, and you don't really have to care whether it's a car or a bike. You just know that your requirement is 2 passengers or 5 passengers, whatever it is. And that what we're going to do is create you the vehicle instance type you need in order to move your people from A to B, regardless of whether or not you know if it's a bike or a car. And this is where the factory pattern really comes into its own. This is the reason the factory pattern is in the Gang of 4 book. It's exactly what your classic use case is. Now, in my experience, the Salesforce ecosystem tends to think of factories as like data factories or test factories for creating test objects. And those are factories, but they're kind of not really what the world thinks of, the rest of the world thinks of when they think of the factory pattern. The factory pattern is you're going to have a class, and then you're going to have a method in that class that gives you back or constructs or fabricates another class instance based on some subset of information you have for the things that you need. All right. So you know that if you've got a number of passengers that is equal to 2, then you can return a bike. Or if it's more than that, you can return a car. And we can make this far more complicated, whatever our logic dictates. So we've done this with cars and bikes. You could also do examples with, for instance, record types. So you could say, create me a B2B account versus a direct business count. You can do, create all of these things in, create, a person account versus a regular account. You can do it with different case types. So, do I want to create a service case object, or do I want to create a installation case object? And what would happen is you would have your factory that says, give me the appropriate case. And that's all you need. And what you get back from that is, okay, this record that we're dealing with is a case record of the record type installation. So I'm going to give you an installation case object whose methods that you already know about will automatically work and be limited to doing the kinds of work that you need for an installation case. And that is sort of the factory pattern in a nutshell. I was going to go into greater detail here when we had the ability to save. I've got 13 minutes left here, and I see that we've got some questions, so I'm going to address those questions, and then if all else fails, we can go back to pounding our heads as to why this won't let me save. So let's see. Doug says, in the package XML, we have to define all components. I think that's related to getting it to save again. And then, Doug, I think there's a little bit of disconnect because I'm using a scratch org and not like a sandbox. So I don't actually have a package manifest anywhere. So there's not some place for me to go look at it and see why is this being ornery. And then Kenneth says, just love it. Thanks again. Hey, Kenneth, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you always tend to give me like a warm, good feeling comment at the end. And I just want to let you know, I appreciate that, especially when I can't get it to save. And then somebody else says, deploy the path to interface file. Yeah, again, that deploys if we were using a sandbox. I'm not entirely sure that, well, I know that won't work with a scratch org. It's weird though, because when we reset this, it's still not, it's like it's not allowing us to get past the fact that there's these prompts, but I don't actually have the prompts. And when I pull the data, none of those prompts are coming back. And I find that a little weird, if I'm honest. Yeah. See, it's coming back. Let's go to the very top one here. Okay. Invalid conversion from bike to... Okay, hold on a second. Maybe this is... Oh. Factory pattern recipes. Return new car. But that invalid type vehicle interface. Okay, so it's not liking the vehicle, and that's why that one's doing that thing. Let's see here. Namespace standard is reserved and unavailable, but the thing is, I don't have this file. I don't think. It's not showing up over here. Let's look over it this way. CD. Boom. No such file or folder. All right, do we have prompts? No. Oh, you know what? I may have been in the wrong folder. Let's do, thank you. Let's see, my package XML comment was from, okay. Didn't apply here. So I don't have those prompts here. And I go back to my output. I'm not trying to edit the in-app guidance. You know, if we go over to our org and we go to in-app guidance, is it even enabled in this scratch org? Guidance. In-app guidance. I'm working on the VS Code extension pack. I'm sorry, it is taking me a while. I'm going to delete this prompt for right now. Okay, so I don't have any prompts listed here. Turn off standard guidance. Turn off and save that. We're just turn those off. Maybe this will allow us to pull. And so if you're wondering what Zydoa, I'm not sure how to pronounce that username, I'm sorry. If you are wondering what he's talking about, I have promised to create this is how I do it. extension pack for Visual Studio Code that has my pretty theme and all of the extensions I use. A lot of people are like, well, how do you get the brackets to be different colors so that they match? And that's the thing that I've had to turn on. Somebody's saying you got to turn it on for the in-app guidance. That's true, except in a Scratch org, that's all controlled by this config. And that's not the one I wanted. I want it in the config folder, this one. You'll see that I've got walkthroughs enabled as a feature, and that's actually what turns that feature on in a Scratch org. So, source conflict detected. Apex recipe. Okay, here we got we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. I'm going to pull from the default Scratch org and overwrite conflicts. So this should create us a prompts folder. Maybe. Pulled source. Nothing. Let's push. And next time on codeLive, you'll see Kevin arguing with Scratch orgs, making typos, and working with one of my colleagues, Beth Bresnes, next week. We're going to be working on metadata services. And if you haven't caught it in the release notes, there's a special set of features coming in the next release in spring 21, static assessors for custom metadata. So you know how you've got your custom setting __c dot get all. You can now do that with custom metadata, which is honestly pretty exciting. Or maybe I just have a sad understanding of what exciting is. Try to push again. No. I don't have prompts yet over here. Let's refresh this. Still don't have prompts. I am confused. So the great thing about this, though, is even though I can't push to the Scratch org, and I'm having some issues creating a new Scratch org, all my source is still here locally. And so I can commit this to Git. If I were to go over here, you can see that I've got 28 things that it wants to commit to Git. And just for grins and giggles, I'm going to make sure that I'm not being held back by, oh, look at this. I've got reload required. I've got a new version of Apex. It'll do Salesforce. Sometimes when I run into issues with this, I find that I just have to reload my extensions because they've updated in the background, and that's what's preventing me from doing something. I should have thought of that earlier. I don't know why I didn't. But now, having reloaded that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say create Scratch org. Scratch. There we go. Took a second. You're doing something, right? Come on, computer. Come on. There we go. Load that project Scratch definition. We're going to call it Apex recipes. We're going to go for 30 days. Hopefully this will let us create a new Scratch org. And then we should be able to push. Hopefully. Let's see. We've got 5 minutes left. Do you think we can do it? Let's see if we can get a poll going. Maybe. I'm so going to chair dance when this works. It's going to be a good classic 90s, like lawn mowing or maybe the sprinkler. Failed to run. Okay. Do you want to tell me why you failed to run? Failed to deploy settings to the Scratch org. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in here to my Scratch org definition, and I'm going to remove the walkthroughs. And now I'm going to do it from the command line. Actually, I'm going to do it here. Default Scratch org 30. Try that. I'm a leaf on the wind. I'm a leaf on the wind. I'm a leaf on the wind. Maybe. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Maybe. No. Do you want to tell me why you can't do it? Maybe this will give me more information. Because this is just saying no. It's like dealing with a 2-year-old. Will you please pick your shoes up? No. Why not? No. I mean, exit code 1? Come on, guys. Gals. We need better error messages than that. No, see, look. Okay. Org create command. Problem deploying settings. Yeah, that's a stack trace. Got one last trick up my sleeve that might be sfdx force. We'll do config set 50. Let's see if it's a problem creating new or scratch orgs on API 50. 51, I mean. So we'll try this with API 50. We'll see what happens. Maybe. Not liking how long this is taking. But just in case it's gonna do its thing, look at our org-init here. Ha! That's what it was. I can create a scratch org again, but it has to be on the current API. So I'm gonna go in here. Nope, don't know what that is. There's a spell checker. Run these commands to set up our scratch org, which the first one is push, so hopefully that's going to work since it's an empty scratch org. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Somebody's saying git bash is pretty good. Have I tried turning it off and turning it back on again? I think that's probably what I basically did by resetting the API version. Good call there. And git bash is great. I prefer Z shell or ZSH. ZSH, it's like bash, but it's user friendly. I mean, bash isn't, the CLI is intimidating. Z shell is, in my opinion, more forgiving. Okay, so look at that. Oh, okay. So I got a push fail, but I got it on actual legitimate errors. So class car, let's open up car, must implement the method integer vehicle interface number of passengers, public integer number of passengers. Well, I don't. Did I typo it? Let's see if this works. And then, yep. Come on. Testing, testing, testing. I got 1 minute left. Let's see if anybody else has question, comments there. Somebody says PowerShell 7 might be the way to go. PowerShell is a wholly different command line beast. Everything is an object, which is kind of cool, but it's also a very different way of thinking about the command line. And if you're not used to it, then it might be a little, let's see here. Better error messages. It doesn't work. Better error message, yes. Switch to Windows VM. No. Okay, so we got a different error. Illegal conversion from bike to vehicle interface. And invalid type car. No, it's not. Return new bike. Does bike not? Oh, do I just need to implement? No. I think that's there. Okay. The thing is, we're out of time, and this has been wholly interesting, and I hope you all turn in next week where we'll actually get some coding done. So thank you for tuning in. Again, my name's Kevin Portman. You can reach me on Twitter at CodeFryer, or you can feel free to leave lovely comments here on the video stream. See you again next Tuesday.